680 News Time, 6:33.
We have breaking news from Avenue Road in Davenport, where an officer has been seriously injured.
680's Carl Hansky joins us live with the very latest. What do you know, Carl?
Well, Paul, I'm here at the scene in Avenue Road in Davenport, where the north part of Avenue Road, north of Davenport, now sealed off. There are police cruisers and police officers everywhere. It appears for a confrontation between a police officer and a possibly stolen snowplow or a pickup truck or something with a plow apparatus on the front. We're not quite sure yet. It appears the plow may have been stolen. The person driving around, the officer, may have gone out to confront the plow to get them to stop and was struck, I'm told, head injuries, and at one point had no vital signs. The plow took off. The officer has been rushed to hospital, obviously. The plow then took off. The police are searching for it as we speak and have no update on that search as of yet. But again, an officer severely injured here at Avenue Road in Davenport after it appears being struck by a possible stolen snowplow. Reporting live at Avenue Road in Davenport, Carl Hansky, 680 News.
680 News Time, 9:03.
680 News. This is in-depth team coverage.
A Toronto police officer rushed to hospital after being hit by a stolen snowplow early this morning, has reportedly died. The CBC reporting that this morning. The alleged driver of the truck is also in hospital and now under arrest after being shot by police. The Special Investigations Unit is now on the case.
We're going to have more from St. Michael's Hospital. We're expecting an update from Police Chief Bill Blair coming up, but we begin our in-depth team coverage with 680's Carl Hansky, who joins us live from where the arrest was made on Keele, south of Dundas. Carl?
Marlene, it was here on Keele Street near Annette where the stolen snowplow's path of destruction ended in a hail of police bullets. Paulo was driving one of at least 3 vehicles rammed by the plow just on this street as it played a game of bumper cars.
In the middle of the road driving down, I seen him hit a car in front of me. Once he hit the car in front of me, I knew that, something was wrong, so I swerved out of the way, and then that's when he hit my car. He would have hit me head on if I didn't swerve out of the way.
And then he hit a garbage truck head on.
And he hit a garbage truck head on.
And then police opened fire.
And that's when police opened fire on him. Wow. Insane.
The suspect was shot several times and rushed to hospital. This all started around 5:30 this morning when the plow was stolen downtown and began ramming vehicles there before it ran into a police officer at Avenue Road in Bloor who was in the road trying to get the plow to stop. The officer, fearing for his life, fired shots at the plow, which struck the officer, then just kept going. Reporting live on Keele Street near Annette, Carl Hansky, 680 News.
680 News Time, 9:05. We continue our team coverage of Officer Down with 680's John Stahl joining us live from St. Michael's Hospital, where Chief Blair is as well. And, John, we're getting the grim news, the report coming up from the CBC this morning that the officer has in fact died.
Paul, we have no official word from Chief Blair on that at the moment. We still expect a statement any time. He has been in the emergency ward since shortly after 7. The suspect arrived by ambulance about 10 minutes to 8 this morning. We are told, of course, that the officer who was rushed early this morning arrived here with no vital signs, and witnesses who were outside the emergency station did report that the paramedics were working very aggressively on him when he was admitted into hospital. The way it was described to me by a witness was he was being pumped very, very hard. So if that report is true, it'll certainly probably be confirmed by Police Chief Blair, who is joined by Union Chief Mike McCormick here at the emergency unit. Reporting live from St. Michael's Hospital, John Stahl, 680 News.
680 News Time, 9:06. Now, the general manager of the snowplow company involved in this played a major role in tracking down the stolen vehicle this morning. 680 Charlene Close spoke to him.
Tolius landscaping boss Richard Arrows tells me 2 operators were clearing a lot in the Regent Park area, specifically at 1 Cole Street in the Dundas and Parliament area. He says they were out of the truck when the suspect, apparently not wearing any shoes, jumped inside and put it in drive. He says all of the company's equipment has a pinpoint GPS system.
So I was in communication with the police, giving them updates on his exact location every few minutes. And from what I understand, he was just driving erratically and smashing into vehicles very, very recklessly.
He says it's normal for his plow operators to keep the rigs running, even when they've stepped outside of them. Charlene Close, 680 News.
680 News Time, 5:33. Tears fell and hearts broke at the Metro Toronto Convention Centre, where a standing room-only crowd gathered to say goodbye to a husband and father killed while serving the city of Toronto. Thousands of police and emergency personnel from across North America joined dignitaries and family in mourning Sergeant Ryan Russell.
680 Shauna Hunt watched the service and joins us with the details.
The sergeant's wife, Christine Russell, had a quiver in her voice as she spoke about her husband and their life together.
We are so honored to have been a part of your life, Ryan. You are our hero.
The sergeant is being remembered as a happy family man and a proud cop. According to the chaplain, Russell always carried a copy of the policeman's prayer.
Another day, Lord, to do my work, unsure of what lies ahead.
And there wasn't a dry eye in the auditorium during a video montage of the officer's life. The family then dedicated the song Let It Be from Ryan to everyone.
Let it be, let it be.
Honoring the life of a fallen officer. Shauna Hunt, 680 News.
Thousands of officers in their best dress uniforms came from across the continent to pay their respects. 680's Kevin Meisner has been talking to mourners as they file out of the convention center, and he joins us live. Kevin.
Well, Catherine, the police officers who attended this service came from right across the country, indeed the continent. Every province was represented by a police officer, along with several American states. Erie County Sheriff's Deputy Gregory Kent tells me he was especially moved by the photo montage during the service of Sergeant Russell with his family.
That was really touching. That really brings to light the things that we sacrifice in this job, or can be sacrificed. There's a wife whose husband's never coming home and a little boy who's never going to have his dad again because of the actions of one man.
Now, many Toronto police officers who attended this service also had a silent tribute to the fallen officer on their uniforms. They wore two pins. One read, "Hero in life, not in death," and under that pin, another pin that was simply Sergeant Russell's badge number. Reporting live outside the Metro Toronto Convention Centre, Kevin Meisner, 680 News.
680 News Time, 9:03.
680 News. This is in-depth team coverage.
He was the heart and soul of the party, leading the federal New Democrats to a surprising second-place finish in the last election. Jack Layton passed away early this morning at his Toronto home, surrounded by his family and friends. A month ago, he appeared before reporters, looking gaunt, to announce that he was fighting cancer for a second time and would be stepping aside as leader to fight the illness. He vowed to beat it, as he had earlier beaten prostate cancer, and be back in Ottawa for the start of Parliament.
In a moment, we'll hear reaction from Torontonians. But first, with a look at the life and times of Jack Layton, 680's political affairs specialist John Stahl.
Jack Layton was born in Hudson, Quebec in the summer of 1950 when a gallon of gas was worth 18 cents. A new car cost $1,500 and Louis Saint Laurent was Prime Minister of Canada. Politics was bred in his bones. His father, Robert, ironically served as a conservative cabinet minister in the Mulroney government. Yet Jack spent his entire political life opposing conservatives from the socialist side of the political spectrum. He was first elected to Toronto City Council in 1981 and spent 20 years as a thorn in the left side of conservative mayors, quite often at the forefront of rowdy sessions like this one before a vote to send Toronto's garbage north.
Come on, Dave. What is going on here? This is a bloody sham. Mr. Chairman, you're a bloody sham as chairman.
Layton ran for mayor of Toronto twice and lost, but became leader of the NDP in January of 2003.
Is this a party on the move? Absolutely.
He did move and lead the NDP into 29 federal seats in the 2006 election, increased the number to 37 in 2008, before surging the party into official opposition status in the last election with 103 seats.
I'm Jack Layton, and I'm running for Prime Minister. And don't let anyone tell you it can't be done. Let's make it happen.
But the goal of becoming Prime Minister was not to happen for Jack Layton, who stunned the nation and his party with word in late July, looking frail and sounding weak, that the prostate cancer he had developed and fought before the election had returned in a different form that he chose to keep private while announcing he would temporarily step aside as leader of the NDP to take on the challenge of his life.
on the advice of my doctors, I'm going to focus on treatment and recovery. And I'm going to fight this cancer now so that I can be back to fight for families when Parliament resumes.
With a look back at the life and legacy of Jack Layton, John Stahl, 680 News.
John, how did we get the word that Jack Layton had passed?
Well, it was issued through a statement, Paul, from his wife, Olivia Chow, and his family, Michael, here in Toronto, that he passed at his home, peacefully with them around his side about 4:45 this morning. So it would be just as most people were rising or slightly before, heading to work that word came down. We're getting all kinds of reaction in. Everybody feels so terrible.
Do we have any word about funeral arrangements yet or anything like that? Is that going to be coming soon?
The details will be forthcoming in the days ahead, but I think there are plans underway, and so many people in this country who watched him, me included. I've known him for a long time over at City Hall. Covered him for like 25 years.
Any personal memory of him? Favorite memory?
I do. His eyes are so blue, and they danced, and when you look at his complexion in his healthy days, they were so red. And his eyes were just piercing and fiery. He was just so anxious to make a difference and didn't back down from anybody.
He always had that energy. Like if you came into a room, if you're doing an interview with him, if you watched him make a speech, I mean, he was the shiny object in the room. Everybody knew Jack Layton had entered the room.
And he always had a great turn of phrase. I mean, this guy was a political scientist as well. He wasn't a politician. He taught politics, and he understood the game very, very, very well. I remember when he was appointed and won the NDP leadership, I asked him here in Toronto, we were just having a coffee, I said, is anybody resisting you up there? You getting any political flack? He said, are you kidding? He said, they're waiting for me. And, look what he did, huh?
Thanks for that, John. And we'll be hearing more about John Stahl in the hours ahead as we remember Jack Layton today. 680 News Time, 9:07.
Jack Layton was a man of the people. We continue our team coverage with 680 Charlene Close, who's getting reaction to his death from Toronto residents. Charlene.
For Jana, shock and surprise from the people. People convinced that if anyone could beat cancer twice, it would be Jack Layton. Martha has never been a huge NDP supporter or a huge Layton fan, but she tells me you can't help but respect the man.
I think he had a lot of goodwill, but I was sorry to hear that he died, but I was not at all surprised. I felt during the whole campaign that he looked extremely ill and that he wasn't saying what was really wrong at that point.
Now, there's also concern on the street about what happens now to the official opposition without Layton at the helm. Reporting live, Charlene Close, 680 News.
680 News Time, 9:08. Lots of tweets this morning about the passing of Jack Layton from Mayor Ford. He tweeted, our deepest condolences to Jack Layton's family. Jack, may you rest in peace. From Lisa Laflamme, the anchor of the CTV News. Very, very sad news to hear that Jack Layton died overnight of cancer. Such a determined and dedicated fighter and a genuinely good man. And from Xiang Gameshi from the CBC, Jack Layton has lost his battle with cancer, absolutely devastated by this news. A dear friend for many years, he always fought for Canada.
There's reaction also on Facebook, comments on our 680 News page on Facebook. John has written, so sorry to hear this. Jack was a true fighter and will truly be missed. Duncan writes, Jack, you will be honored by all Canadians for your courage and leadership. Mary writes, may he rest in peace. He was a good man. 680 News Time, 6:03.
680 News. This is in-depth team coverage.
Canada remembering Jack Layton today. Services at Roy Thompson Hall have come to an end, but the state funeral for the late opposition leader, seeing his political foes, dignitaries, and members of the public gathering together to pay respect.
A throng of people took over city streets and squares to watch the funeral on large TV screens. We'll have more on the public reaction in a moment. We begin our in-depth team coverage with 680's political affairs specialist, John Stahl.
It was a very moving ceremony, from the words that were spoken by friends and colleagues like Stephen Lewis, who characterized the Layton letter as a manifesto of social democracy, to Reverend Brent Hawkes, who shared that Layton revealed to him during the final days that he was sorry there wasn't enough time to make amends with anyone he inadvertently hurt during a life of no regrets. But it was the music setting the tone, from the somber like this from Stephen Page. Hallelujah. To this from Lorraine Segato.
Yeah, you can clap because I think Jack would want you to clap. Rise up, rise up.
Jack Layton's spouse, Olivia Chow, did not speak at the funeral, but Layton's son, Michael, did sum up his father's life with this anecdote about being becalmed with his dad on a sailboat.
You can wait forever for perfect conditions, he said. Or you can make the best of what you got now.
Covering Jack Layton's state funeral in Toronto, John Stahl, 680 News.
And the emotional outpouring for Jack Layton has been strong among the thousands gathered to mourn his passing. 680's Jamie Pulfer among the grieving.
People here tell me they were completely moved by this service. A massive crowd gathered here in David Pico Square watching on big screens. Michael tells me he has a lot of admiration for Jack Layton.
And Jack's always fought hard for the working class, and he's always been a wonderful human being as well. So
look at this turnout. Are you surprised by it?
It doesn't surprise me at all. It speaks volumes to the type of individual that Jack Layton was.
Now, another man tells me the NDP leader lived what he believed, and that is truly inspiring. There were so many people here today that they spilled out onto the streets, cheering at times, dancing to the music, and brought to tears by the emotion of the day. Outside Roy Thompson Hall, Jamie Pulfer, 680 News.
680 News Time, 4:33.
Breaking news on gas prices. You could be getting a better deal on prices with oil companies now changing the way they adjust prices at the pumps.
As we hear from 680's Richard Southern, the change is due in part to pressure from your all-news radio station, 680 News. Richard?
Could well be the case, John. For the last decade or so, gas prices in the GTA were fairly steady from one station to the next. In general, prices went up and went down in lockstep. That was because Imperial Oil, owners of Esso stations, would set the trend and most others would follow along. But a few weeks ago, everything changed. Imperial Oil stopped sharing their wholesale price, releasing it only after midnight. Now, in September, 680 News became the second entity in Toronto to start predicting gas prices. And Roger McKnight, senior petroleum analyst at Enpro, says Toronto's All News Radio might have prompted these big changes at the wholesale level in the GTA.
I don't think they liked people predicting what the price is going to be.
I think it's possible 680 News and Enpro could have had at least some small hand in this.
Not a small hand, a very large hand.
And these changes have sparked a little gas price war in the GTA.
It takes away the fences on the pricing, that's for sure. This is now a level playing field. It's good for the consumer.
I'm not long off the phone with a spokesperson from Imperial Oil. He confirms that the company has stopped sharing its wholesale prices until after midnight, but he denies that 680 News had anything to do with it. By the way, we're predicting gas prices to go up a cent at midnight. Reporting live, Richard Southern, 680 News.
680 News Time, 9:02.
About 200 people joined Charlie Sheen on a march from the Ritz-Carlton Hotel to Massey Hall tonight in the name of charity. Sheen had announced earlier on Twitter that he wanted to do the march to raise money for a Calgary-based organization for Bipolar Affective Disorder Society.
680's Kevin Meisner joined the march ahead of the second Violent Torpedo of Truth show.
At first, Charlie Sheen couldn't go anywhere. He was stuck on the sidewalk, surrounded by a crush of fans.
What do you think of this crowd? I think nobody's cooperating.
That's when police and bodyguards had to move in and physically create a path.
Move out of the way!
Police did their best to keep people safe and up on the sidewalk and moving, but the 250-plus fans still stumbled, were jostled, and knocked off balance in the chaotic crowd. Ian was right in the middle of it.
It was epic, because you were right close to Charlie. Oh, it was well worth it. I'd do it again. Charlie's got to come back and do another march.
Winning.
After
the walk, Charlie thanked the crowd to a huge cheer, then went into Massey Hall for his final show. Kevin Meisner, 680 News.
680 News Time, 7:04. Well, he was recently here in Toronto for a sneak peek of his new film, but will Justin Bieber show up tomorrow night in his hometown of Stratford for the local premiere of his movie Never Say Never? Stratford officials doubt it because Bieber is getting ready for the Grammy Awards in Los Angeles, where he is up for Best New Artist and Best Pop Vocal Album. The LA premiere of the movie was last night. 680's music reporter Rudy Blair will also be in Los Angeles for the Grammys, and he recently took a trip to Bieber's hometown to find out what the locals think of their pop star.
You know you love me.
32,000 people live in Stratford, Ontario. The mayor of Stratford, Dan Matherson, told me the city is famous for several things, including
the Stratford Shakespeare Festival, our manufacturing sector, tourism.
But their greatest export is pop star Justin Bieber. The mayor says Bieber has become an ambassador for the city.
He carries himself with such poise and grace, and most people don't know this. He's back in town here regularly, rents ice with his buddies.
Steve McMurray, manager of Long and McQuaid Music Shop, says Bieber used to buy his instruments from his store.
Sometimes he would take what he made in busking and come in and buy musical instruments.
But when I spoke with students, they seem to have mixed feelings about their local star.
Do you ever listen to his music?
No.
Why not?
I don't really like the kid.
Yeah, I love him. I'm going to marry him.
I am, actually.
Rudy Blair, 680 News.
Time now for 680 Sports, brought to you by AddisonGM.com.
Over to Sportsnet Radio, the Fan 590. So here we are, 7:45-ish. And Peter Gross, this is, I guess this is your sixth sportscast of the morning. The number 6 must be important.
Yes, the number 6 is important, Marlene. I can do a lot with the number 6 in this sportscast. In fact, this sportscast is brought to you by Bird of Sesame Street because
my favorite number is 6.
You see, the Blue Jays have a 6-game winning streak. They outscored the Tigers 4-2. 6 runs scored in that game. With the outcome, Max Scherzer failed to extend his 6-game winning streak. The winning pitcher was Kyle Drabek, who allowed just a run on 3 hits, but he did walk 6. That's how many runs the Red Sox allowed before coming back to zap the Orioles 7-6. 6. That's how many straight the Yankees have lost. They gave up 6 and scored just 5 against Tampa. Many people are enjoying the Yankees' losing streak.
Nothing more lovely than 6.
And when the Jays and Tigers complete their 2-game series tonight, how many times will that be that these two teams have played this season?
6.
Vin Mazzaro wishes the 6 applied to him, or the 7 or the 8, just not 14. That's how many runs the reliever allowed as the Indians obliterated the Royals 19-1. Mazzaro allowed 10 runs in the 4th. Makes you wonder why manager Ned Yost sent him out for the 5th, in which Mazzaro allowed 4 more runs, making him the first pitcher in baseball history to allow 14 runs in less than 3 innings. And after the game, he was demoted to AAA Omaha. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won 8 straight playoff games. They knocked off the Bruins in Game 1 in Boston. Game 2 tonight at the TD Garden in Boston. And Kentucky Derby champ Animal Kingdom is expected to run in the Preakness Saturday at Pimlico. Trainer Graham Motion is hoping his 3-year-old colt gets a better post than the number 16 he was assigned for in the Derby. Well, Graham, what post position would you want?
My favorite number is 6.
Sports at 15 and 45, past every hour or anytime at 680news.com.
At 680 on the AM dial and live on the internet at 680news.com. This is 680 News.
It's Monday, August 22nd. Good morning. And for Marlene Oliver, I'm Slajana Tominzi.
I'm Paul Cook, 15 degrees and sunny in downtown Toronto. Here's what's making news this hour.
I'm Carl Hansky in Goderich, where crews spent all night searching for more possible victims after a deadly tornado tears through the town.
It was terrifying. The GTA also feeling the effects of severe weather. Large tree limbs are down in the Yonge and Lawrence area.
Tripoli reaches the tipping point as rebels storm the heart of the capital while 95% of Muammar Gaddafi's defense forces crumble.
At the movies, The Help takes over first place.
I'm a help with your stories. We all are.
In sports, brilliant pitching and another home run from Jose Bautista gave the Blue Jays a win in Oakland, and Toronto FC continues to sputter on the road. Sports at 45.
An uptrend for U.S. stock futures after the latest weekly sell-off. Price for oil moving higher. Gold soaring to a record. Canadian dollar 1.5 cents above parity. Business at 56.
680 News time, 8:31.
Time for 680 News traffic and weather together on the ones. Brought to you by 407 ETR Airborne and Skymaster 1, Daryl Dummer.
Still heavy going southbound on the 404. Elgin Mills from Major Mackenzie. Problem south of Elgin Mills on the shoulder. Not bad at the bottom end of the 404 southbound. Busy through Shepherd Collectors. Approaching 401 Express onto the Don Valley to Winford Drive. Busy down through Don Mills. We've given rescue a call about the traffic light problems on Don Mills at Duncan Mills southbound. It's heavy on Don Mills from south of the 401. Jennifer Young.
Spotted new problems now in the MTO Compass cameras. Eastbound on the 403 in Mississauga, just east of Huron, Ontario. Stalled vehicle in the left lane. Nobody on scene. It's heavy from approaching Erin Mills all the way through to east of Huron, Ontario. South 410 coming out of Brampton, heavy down towards the Courtney Park stretch, but no problems. The Gardner still heavy both directions into and out of the downtown core. Earlier westbound troubles approaching the 427 long since cleared. Now with latest forecast, here is meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Lots of sunshine for us today. No major weather worries. It will be windy, though, and a bit below average. The guaranteed high, 22, 12 for the low, and then near 26 tomorrow. So we'll warm up with sun and cloud. Right now, it's 15 degrees, sunny at 680 News, 16 at Pearson. Got the wind out of the northwest at 30 kilometers per hour. Today's guaranteed high, 22.
680 News Time, 8:32. 680 News. This is in-depth team coverage.
Premier Dalton McGuinty says the province is ready to help Canada's prettiest town. Residents of Goderich are waking up to a state of emergency after a powerful tornado tore through the region, leaving one person dead and injuring more than 35 people. A separate storm formed in that same volatile air mass ripped down tree branches and hydro wires here in the GTA.
We'll take a closer look at local damage in just a moment, but we begin our in-depth team coverage of the extreme weather with 680's Carl Hansky, who's in Goderich this morning and joins us live with the latest. Carl.
Yeah, one word, Paul. Wow. The square here in the heart of Goderich took a direct hit from this tornado. Almost every building I've seen is damaged or destroyed. A number of homes also destroyed as well, including Barb's. Her entire second story ripped right off.
We just headed for the basement at the end of the house, and we got halfway downstairs, and all the debris was just flying at us.
Your roof came off as you were going down the stairs?
Yep, it did. Yeah.
He must have been absolutely frightened.
It was terrifying. It was terrifying.
This man was driving through downtown when the tornado hit and says he had to steer around cars that were in the air spinning around like tops.
A lot of the vehicles that were parked out front, the windows were blown out of them, and it was just a mess. It was just chaos.
Now, officials have started doing a better damage assessment, and there's actually a heavy search and rescue unit coming up from Toronto to help go through the rubble of all the buildings. Reporting live in Goderich, Carl Hansky, 680 News.
The mayor of Goderich spoke about the tornado at a news conference last night.
It's with a heavy heart that I have to report one fatality and several injuries have been confirmed. Emergency service personnel are on the ground and continue to search buildings and grounds in an effort to ensure everyone is accounted for.
Local police tell 680 News a 61-year-old man died in the storm when he was thrown off a crane. Environment Canada is classifying the killer tornado as an F2 or low F3, which means it packed winds of up to 320 kilometers an hour.
680 News Time, 8:35. At the height of the storm, thousands of people across this city were without power. We continue our in-depth team coverage with 680's Charlene Close in the Young Lawrence area this morning, where tree limbs are blocking some roads. Charlene.
Well, take your pick of any of these side streets in the Young Lawrence and even down to Eglinton. It doesn't take long to spot the storm damage. The most obvious, this tree that is now part of Vern's front porch and roof here at 113 Fairlawn Avenue. He tells me he and his wife were upstairs in the back of the house watching television at the time.
And all of a sudden, the whole house just shook. Went, what was that? We walked into the front bedroom and saw this tree up against the house.
Now, nearby on Alexandra Boulevard, there's also a silver Honda parked in a driveway. It's not going anywhere, though. There's a large tree limb that has crushed it. The front and back windows have been shattered. Lots of debris around this neighborhood, but the cleanup crews are on scene right now. Reporting live, Charlene Close, 680 News.
Still to come on 680 News.
Proof that life can exist on Mars is found right here on Earth.
680 News Time, 8:36.
680 News Time, 8:37. Now the 680 News Transit Report. First, we're live to Jessica Martin at TTC Control. Jessica.
Thanks, Lejenna. If you're heading into the subways right now, still seeing minor delays on the Blue Danforth line in the east end at Victoria Park Station due to signal problems. You'll need to add an extra 5 minutes to your trip there. The Yonge and Shepherd lines are looking good on your surface routes. We still have Royal York closed north of Dundas because of a collision investigation. Buses in the area diverting both ways. That's it. Back to you.
And now we're live to Go Transit Headquarters. Here's Nicole Janicki.
Thanks, Lejenna. We now have a train delay on our Lakeshore East line. The 813 from Union to Oshawa delayed about 10 minutes, and that's because of an equipment issue affecting one of our Lakeshore West trains from earlier this morning. Otherwise, everything else is moving smoothly. It's Lejenna.
Thanks, Nicole. 680 News Time, 8:38.
We have breaking news this morning from Libya, where rebel fighters now hold 95% of Tripoli. NATO-assisted rebels were met with little resistance yesterday as they made their way into the capital city. 680's political affairs specialist John Stahl is monitoring the latest developments out of Libya this morning and joins us live with the latest. John.
Well, the end of the Gaddafi regime is near, Paul. The rebel forces now control most of Tripoli. Most of his defense force has collapsed. There are, and I have Twitter reports, that rebels are meeting heavy resistance from tanks outside the Gaddafi compound. No confirmation as to Gaddafi's whereabouts. Rumors are swirling. One has it that he's in hospital. The BBC is quoting a blogger who says a Libyan businessman has heard he's flown to Algeria. Both of his sons have been captured by rebels and they're being detained. Listen to this really dramatic tape. One of his sons, Mohammed, was actually in the process of surrendering while live on air with Al Jazeera by telephone when rebels stormed his house.
Our differences could have been solved very easily. I'm being attacked right now. This is gunfire inside my house. They're inside my house.
That was one of the sons of Muammar Gaddafi. He was not injured. He is detained. NATO leaders offering statements. So is the head of Libya's National Transitional Congress, Prime Minister Harper, who's visiting Canada, Canada's far north, rather, indicated that this country hopes the end is near for the Gaddafi regime. On the international watch, John Stahl, 680 News.
680 News time, 8:39. Peel police believe autopsy results will confirm the body found in a Palgrave Pond Saturday night is that of Raquel Junio, 42-year-old, disappeared Thursday. Her estranged husband and his friend have been charged with forcible confinement, assault, and kidnapping. Those charges could be upgraded depending on the outcome of today's autopsy. Last night, there was a vigil held for Junio outside the Brampton thrift store where she worked.
If you're traveling to the U.S. this week, you may be more impressed with the service. New consumer protection rules for airline passengers go into effect tomorrow. Airlines that leave an international flight on the tarmac for more than 4 hours can now face fines of up to $27,000. Passengers will be reimbursed for up to 4 times the ticket price if they are bumped from an oversold flight. And airlines now have to disclose all extra fees on their websites.
Straight ahead on 680 News, Royal York Road still closed north of Dundas. Check of traffic and weather together next.
680 News time, 8:40.
680 News time, 8:41. Time for 680 News, traffic and weather together on the ones. Brought to you by New Canadian Drain and Plumbing, Airborne and Skymaster 1, Daryl Dahmer.
Well, good news. Highway 400 southbound through the King Road. Problems are great. Slight delay down through Rutherford Road. Busy at the bottom end of the southbound 400 south of Shepherd to the 401 ramps. Last check at Don Mills. Still heavy going south of the 401 to Duncan Mill. Traffic light problem. South 404. It's busy. Elgin Mills to south of Major Mackenzie. Busy at the bottom end of the south 404. From approaching Shepherd and the collectors to the 401 ramps. 401 express lanes are busy out of the South Don Valley to Winford Drive. Another South Don Valley delay span. Bridge down to south of York Mills. North out of the Don Valley is busy approaching Eglinton Avenue up toward the 401. You're going to find delays eastbound on the 401 out of Milton to Trafalgar Road. Still busy east on the 401. Mississauga Road to Mavis and busy east on the 401. East of Dixie, alternately express and collectors to Weston Road. Jennifer Young.
Emergency crews just cleared on the eastbound 403 in Mississauga Road, Mississauga east of Huron, Ontario. It's still heavy, though, from Winston Churchill all the way through to east of Huron, Ontario. Westbound on the Gardiner is still very heavy, approaching Jarvis all the way through Royal York. Eastbound Gardiner, heavy Royal York in towards Dufferin. In the Burlington area, hearing that eastbound Dundas has been closed down between Walkers and Appleby, some sort of police activity. North and southbound Royal York still closed. North of Dundas, collision investigation. Northbound Kiel approaching the 401, slower than usual because of construction in the right lane. Now with the latest forecast, meteorologist Jill Taylor. Northwest wind really starting to pick up now, but plenty of sunshine today and tomorrow. Could get some showers late in the day on Wednesday, and we'll start to warm up as we move through the week. By Wednesday, it'll feel more like 33 with the humidity. Right now, it's 16 degrees, sunny at Pearson, 15 at 680 News. Wind out of the northwest at 30 kilometers per hour. The guaranteed high, 22.
680 News time, 8:43.
This just into the 680 newsroom. NDP leader Jack Layton has died after a battle with cancer.
We're joined live by 680's political affairs specialist, John Stahl. Terribly sad news, John.
Yeah, it's news, Paul, that many Canadians were not anxious to hear, but suspected when they saw Jack earlier in August. We just got the word that he passed away at his home just before 5 this morning. The statement has also just been released by his wife, Olivia Chow, and son Michael, that he was here in Toronto at his home surrounded by his family. Passed early this morning just before 5 at age 61.
680's political affairs specialist John Stahl reporting live there on the passing of NDP leader Jack Layton. Time now for the 680 News Market Minute, brought to you by Manulife Mutual Funds.
To the Business Center, here's Mike Apple.
Okay, so Jana, we have the market futures climbing right now. Dow futures up 130 points, signaling a positive start to the trading week. The TSX coming off that sell-off of last week of over 500 points and the 179-point give back on Friday. The price for oil moving marginally higher this morning, up 94 cents, 83.20. Gold climbing $13, well off of its peak at 18.65, and the Canadian dollar 1.60 cents above parity, up by a third of a cent. At the Business Center, Mike Apple, 680 News.
Still to come on 680 News, Gross on sports, pretty good Western road swing for the Blue Jays.
This is 680 News.
Because the world has changed. You need 680 News 3, 4, 5 times a day. Lock it on. All News Radio, 680 News.
A clear sunny sky in downtown Toronto, 16 degrees. Good morning from the 680 News Broadcast Center. I'm Sljana Tominski.
I'm Paul Cook, and here are the top stories right now.
An F2 or F3 tornado brings death and destruction to Goderich, leaving the Ontario town in a state of emergency. NDP leader Jack Layton has died after fighting a battle with cancer. After sports, St. Catharines reports another C. difficile-related death.
Time now for 680 Sports.
From Sportsnet Radio, the Fan 590, here's Peter Gross.
Sljana, in his first Major League start, Luis Perez allowed just one hit over 6 innings. The Jays knocked over the A's in Oakland 1-0. Perez, the pitcher of record, when Jose Bautista led off the 7th with the home run, and that made Perez the winner. Blast number 36 for Bautista. He still leads all the majors in homers. Blue Jays went 4-3 on the road trip, host the Royals tomorrow. Toronto FC has now gone 14 matches this season without a win on the road. 2-0 for the Chicago Fire last night. Toronto hit the post twice in the second half and has now dropped into last of 9 teams in the Eastern Conference. Matt McQuillan of Kingston paid a heavy price for not making the cut in the Wyndham Championships this weekend. McQuillan needed a good finish to make it into the top 125 in the FedEx Cup standings. Instead, he's 145th, so he'll be on the outside looking in when the Barclays starts this week in New Jersey. David Hearn also missed the cut, but he sneaks into the Barclays at 117th. Webb Simpson won the Wyndham tournament, prevailing by 3 shots. Kyle Busch, the winner at the NASCAR race in Michigan. Andy Murray, the champion at the Western and Southern Tennis Tournament in Cincinnati, because Novak Djokovic had to retire in the final with a bad shoulder. Djokovic losing for just the second time in 59 matches this year. Sports are 15 and 45 past every hour or anytime at 680news.com.
At the movies, 4 new flicks failed to finish first. 680 News film critic Leslie James takes a look at the weekend ticket wicket tally.
The Help wins top spot.
We're going down in now.
Last weekend's second placer is number 1 now, helping itself to another $20.5 million.
They're not people, you know.
Rise of the Planet of the Apes, champ for 2 weekends, drops a notch to second, gripping another $16.3 million.
So make me punch your lights out.
Spy Kids, All the Time in the World in 4D, the scratch and sniff family flick, debuts in third, whiffing up $12 million.
I live, I love, I slay, and I am content.
Conan the Barbarian opens in 4th, ahead of Fright Night.
Don't answer the door.
Leslie James, 680 News and 680news.com.
680 News time, 8:56.
Now the 680 News Business Report. Here is Mike Apple.
Sljana, we have U.S. stock futures at the best level of the morning. Dow futures up 160 points. S&P futures up by 20 points, or 1 3/4%, following last week's slump for the S&P 500 of 4.6%. Worst week for the broader market average stateside since mid-2009. The TSX looking at a possible rebound on the opening trade this morning, coming off a Friday retreat of 179 points, down over 500 points over the course of the last week. Our benchmark stock index down just over 10% year to date. Price for gold earlier hit a peak of $1,898 an ounce. It's off that right now, still up $12 at $1,865. Gold is currently up by 41% year to date. It's on pace for its best 1-year gain in 32 years, even as the precious metal has gone higher in 11 years in a row. So gold continues to be the defensive investment. Silver's up by 35 cents at $42.82. The price for oil adding $1.31 at $83.57. Natural gas down 4 cents at $3.90 per million BTUs. Bank stocks in the spotlight this week, with the Bank of Montreal due to report quarterly results starting tomorrow. National Bank and Royal Bank also on tap this week. The economic calendar has Canadian retail sales due in tomorrow. Later in the week, U.S. GDP revision, and also the big speech on Friday in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The Fed Symposium, that annual event where the Federal Reserve Governor, in this case Ben Bernanke, will speak and potentially offer up more economic stimulus. Whether or not the U.S. economy needs any more of a cash infusion right now, and whether or not they'll offer anything up, that remains to be seen. Will lead to a choppy day of trade or week of trade ahead of that. Canadian dollar is moving higher this morning. It's up to 1.59 cents above parity. Loonie has been moving fairly in lockstep with commodity prices of late, and this morning is up by about 1/3 of a cent. In the Treasury market, the Canada 10-year bond is starting the week modestly higher, the yield up by 3 basis points at 2.33%. At the Business Center, Mike Eppel, 680 News.